Welcome back to Not a Straight Line with me, Pete Daly-Dickson. This is the show that explores the non-linear journeys of artists and entrepreneurs to inspire you as you zigzag through your own non-straight line life. And this week, in what is the final episode of this iteration of the podcast, I was extremely privileged to talk to the unstoppable René Deceuninck. To describe Renee in a paragraph would be an injustice. And I know I say that of all my guests, but how can I adequately prepare you for this ex-paramilitary officer, lorry driver, body language expert, wellness advocate, personal bodyguard for Tony Robbins no less, and soon-to-be wellness resort owner? Perhaps I should start with his troubled childhood in Belgium, where he was bullied in school. But he was fortunate to have brilliant parents who taught him the discipline that he needed to rise above the negative attitudes and become the super accomplished person that he is today. As a 60-year-old with the health and fitness of someone 20 years younger, the stories he shared with me on this episode are fascinating and his experiences are inspiring if you're looking for that person who can tell you to just be you. Listen in to find out why Renée's advice is your path to being limitless and why I wanted René to be the final feather in the Not a Straight Line cap. Let's get to the conversation. So the three of us just want to start off with closing our eyes. As always, the caveat, if you're driving, don't do that. I don't want to be held responsible for any road traffic accidents. We'll just close our eyes. We'll just do 3 physiological sighs. And one of those is 2 breaths in through the nose, held for a beat, and then breathe out. We'll just do that 3 times and then we'll end the conversation. So I'm going to breathe in. And again. René Deceuninck, welcome to the Not a Straight Line podcast. It's a pleasure to have you with me, sir.
Thank you for having me, Peter. It's an honor, privilege to be here with you, and I look forward to this conversation for sure.
Yeah, me too. So just for the sake of the listener and me, actually, because after our intro call a couple of weeks ago, I know that you do travel around quite a bit. Where are you oriented geographically in the world right now?
Born in Belgium, living in London. However, right now I'm in the Netherlands, and next stop is Dubai. So, yeah.
Already there's a couple of placeholders for some zigs and zags, which I'm sure we'll be able to get to. So as we climb up to the top diving board to launch into this conversation, that question that I sent you by email a couple of days ago that I just reminded you of just now, I understand that something came to mind immediately for you when you heard that question in terms of the zig or zag that kind of felt the biggest for you. Let's start there with the conversation and we'll see where we go.
One of the things that made a big change in my life was when I was 11 years old. I got a book from my parents, and the book was called Kung Fu. It has nothing to do with a fighting sport. It has to do with the Tao Te Ching, which is a certain belief that Wayne Dyer talks a lot about. He sadly passed away in 2015 or 16, Wayne Dyer. In that book, I received it as an 11-year-old kid. And who does give their children at 11 years a book about the Tao Te Ching? But my mom was into yoga, etc., etc. And what happened is that I did put the book away, but years later, like when I was 18, 19, I started reading about the Dalai Lama, about Deepak Chopra, and I took that book back into my hands. And that was for me a big game changer in terms of how do you go through life? How do you think, and why do you think what you think? And that was in essence also the beginning of why do people say certain things and their body language says differently. But to come back to your question, what was the big game changer was definitely that book for sure.
And did you read it at 11 or did you kind of go, what's this? And kind of just shove it under the bed?
The second option. I was like, oh my goodness. So I did put it away. And I mean, I took it back in my hands years later and it was an amazing book.
Did your parents kind of have a sense that that you do that? They're hoping that you would read it. Did they give it to you more for them than for you? I'm interested.
I think it's because of their own beliefs. And, what does a parent do? They guide their kids until the kid is old enough to guide their own life. And I think it was in terms of their belief. But then again, my mom was into yoga and into all kinds of, Tao Te Ching and different, like, I wouldn't say religion, but different ways of thinking. And that was probably initially the reason why she gave me that book, just to keep on doing the same thing, or at least read it and apply it. I think that was the big reason.
What was going on for you at 18, 19 that made you both remember the book and want to get it back out and read it then?
There's a whole story attached to that, in the sense that I was bullied in school as a kid. And it's horrible to go through a period like that as a child.
Physically or verbally or both?
Both. Yeah, I run home in the afternoon crying, and I didn't want to go to school in the morning. It was that bad. There was always something that made me sad during the day, and the bullying was, like, yeah, you might say severe. Now, when I turned 17, I had so much negativity towards me that I said, watch me and I'll show you, right? Kind of attitude. And I applied for the Navy, and I got like a reply from people: I wouldn't do that if I would be you, because you're a good for nothing. You're not going to make it, all that negativity, like a shower of negativity. And my only thought was like, watch me and I'll show you. And I'm going to keep it nice and clean here. But I added F off, right?
It doesn't need to be. It's a explicit rated show, so you can say whatever you like.
So I said, watch me, I'll show you, and fuck off, right?
Yeah.
So, so that was actually what I said.
Who was saying this to you? Not your parents, obviously, but
No, not my parents and not my close family.
like friends or
friends, the environment, yeah, what I was living in. Yeah, and then I was in the Navy, and that was like a system that got installed in me, like, watch me and I'll show you. I saw people walking around with stars and stripes. I said, if they can, I can. And I wanted to prove myself again. And I am an extrovert, right? So I went home and told everybody, I'm going to become this and this and that. And I said, Renee, can't you be happy where you are? And again, I said, watch me and I'll show you. And, so I applied anyway and became an engineer in building bridges and roads and stuff. And they're like, well, how do you do that? I say, just do it. I didn't want to explain myself to people anymore. And then I saw people flying airplanes and jumping out of airplanes. And I said, wow, this is me, right? And got home and I was like, oh my God, I'm going to become a special forces. I'm going to jump out of airplanes and then later on probably fly them. And it actually happened. And, all the negativity was in fact fuel for me to plan things and do things and also realizing them. Then later on, I understood that you don't have to prove anything to anybody. And I changed that. Watch me and I'll show me.
Yeah, powerful.
So, and that was the right attitude. Watch me and I'll show me. Like you have the Snoop Dogg thing. I thank me for continuing. I thank me for being persistent. I thank me, I don't know. I think you know the scene, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So just going back, so around about 17, 18, you're experiencing the bullying. What triggered that book that your parents had given you, 7 or 8 years earlier? Okay. What was what made you think of it and get it back out then?
The first sentence in that book was, don't do anything to anybody somebody would do to you. So don't do anything to anybody that they would do to you. So in other words, respect people, love them, even if they are bullying you. There will be a day that will change because karma does exist. And all these principles, I started applying them. And bit by bit, times started changing. And I started attracting the right people. One of the things is in 2002, when my dad passed away, the last time you see people before they close the coffin, I said, I'm going to achieve everything in my life that I have here in my mind, and I'll see you on the other side. And I left. And one of the things was, I wanted to meet with the Dalai Lama because of the books I read from the Dalai Lama, because of Deepak Chopra, because of that book from my mom and dad that I received. And there's a whole story behind it. And I meditated about it, prayed about it, and it didn't happen because my question was to the universe, hey, I would like to meet the Dalai Lama, and if possible, in Belgium. So I'm very choosy, you know.
Yeah, very precise. Well, you know, if you're going to ask, you might as well be precise about it.
Yeah. So when you ask something to the universe, you have to be precise. And I was not precise enough because I didn't put a date to it. And but anyway, it took me 2 years from 2002 to 2004 to realize, you know what? If it happens, amazing. And if it doesn't happen, amazing. Just let it go. And 2 years later, during Father's Day, one of my daughters gave me an envelope with 2 tickets for the Dalai Lama in Belgium. So be aware. I mean, you have to be aware of what you ask. Ask and you shall receive is not a funny quote in the Bible. It is a fact. And I asked that, and actually that happened. And my daughter didn't know. No, she didn't know about my question or my dream to do that. And that was an amazing experience. In 2006, I met him in Belgium. And I have so many stories like that, similar stories with Tony Robbins in 1995 when I started my business. My first book was a book from Tony Robbins, Notes from a Friend, a very tiny book. You can read it in less than 2 hours.
I remember, I've read it. Yeah.
Yeah. And I said, wow, that dude is crazy, man. I want to meet him. I'm going to work with him. And I told a couple of my friends, I said, Renee,
you're crazy. Not going to happen. Yeah.
He's a multimillionaire. He lives in the US. Who do you think you are? He's going to make time.
I bet I know what you said in return. Watch me, I'll show you.
Yeah.
Fuck off.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's actually what I was thinking, like, hey, watch me and let's see. The universe will do the work, but you have to do the work yourself as well, right? It doesn't come to you like in a package, like, hey, please have it. No, it doesn't work like that. Anyway, and I went to my first Tony Robbins event and I was like, I want to meet the guy. I want to see what is this Unleash the Power Within thing all about. Went there and had an amazing time, the firewalk and all these things. And I went back home and there was a guy, there was a group, the Yes Group, and they used to have them in the UK and in Belgium and everywhere a little bit. I mean, I spoke on all of them. And what happened is I went to join them in Brussels one night. I mean, it was like a month or 2 months later than when I left London with Robbins. And I went there and there was a Portuguese guy and he was doing a workshop. An amazing guy. I mean, today he's one of my best friends. So we finished the workshop, we go to the lounge of the hotel and he says, hey man, how was the workshop? I said, well, pretty good. I mean, we're in the same industry. You didn't share anything new, but hey, it was very interesting from the perspective you brought it. And he says, okay. He says, your history you shared with me from the forces and, can you handle weapons? And can you handle people? And I said, what is this? He says, I have a question for you, a personal question. Is that good? I said, yeah, sure. He says, how many years have you been smoking? And I was like, what? Because he was right. But that day I didn't smoke because I didn't want people to notice I'm a smoker. Because in those days, your credit went down tremendously when they knew you were a smoker, right? Different attitude in those days. And I said, how do you know? And he says, I can tell, man, you know, your face, your color, how you speak, et cetera, et cetera. I said, okay. I said, I've been smoking for so many years, that many years. And he says, how long have you been trying to quit? And he was right. I wanted to quit, but I thought like the universe has a different journey for me. I might be a smoker for the rest of my days. That's okay. I can live with that. And he said, that's the biggest BS I ever heard in my life. What are you talking about? He says, I got an opportunity for you. And we are today with 8 people doing this. We're only 7 now. 1 quit. But what you just told me, if this is all true, if you can prove this, you are the right person for that spot. My first question obviously was like, what is it?
What is it? That was my question and the listener, I'm sure.
Yeah. And he said to me, I can't tell you. And I said, what? He says, it's for non-smokers only. And I went ballistic. I drove home that night. I was already 3 a.m, smoking like a chimney. And I was so nervous because I could feel it. He had something that was very, very special. And I went home and then fast forward 3 months later, I was back home in Belgium and I was smoking a cigarette. And I looked at that cigarette and I said, you know what, man? Stop being a kid and take the decision. Don't take a decision, take the decision. And I stopped smoking that day. I picked up the phone. I called him and said, hey, Ricardo, René from Belgium. And he says, oh, brother, how you doing, brother? I said, stop the brother thing, man. I just want to let you know I quit smoking. And his response was, I don't believe you. And I said, what? I said, you have to know one thing for sure is that when I take a decision, there is no way back. I took the decision. That's it. He says, okay, I'll believe you. I'll send you an email with information, respond to it, and let's see what happens. You have a great day. Put the phone down. And I was going to ask, what do you have? Right? I called him back and I called him back. He didn't pick up his phone anymore. I said, man. So I was so nervous. However, I do know right now why he did it this way, right? And it took him 14 days to send me that email. And after 14 days, I get the email and it says, as subject, application, personal bodyguard, Tony Robbins. And I was like, what?
What?
Till today, I'm getting right, when I think about this moment, which was also a moment in my life that made a big shift in my thinking and existing. So I filled in the whole thing and sent it back. And a week later, I got the news hey, man, you're on board and you are the new bodyguard for Tony Robbins, personal bodyguard, not the stage or whatever, personal. I said, okay, wow. So that being said, I did that for 2 years. And then after 2 years, I said, listen, I'm going to have to move. I have to move on. I got a company to run and thank you for the opportunity. He says, no, thank you for your service and protecting me and my wife, et cetera, et cetera. So after 2 years, I left and I was thinking who is hiring Tony in terms of on the Unleash the Power Within seminars and who is hiring him to do all of that? I mean, I want to connect with them because if they hire Tony and then they would hire me, this is the top of the top, right? And I chased Veronica Chu from Success Resources in Singapore. I chased her. Where she went, I went. And each time she saw me, she'd say, hey, Renee, my Belgian friend, how are you doing? And after a year, I remember it like yesterday. It was in London, in Earl's Court, as an Ibis Hotel in Earl's Court, London. And I was there, and it was a Millionaire Mind, whatever, seminar. And she said, oh my God, Renee, how you doing? I said, good, Veronica, how are you? Oh, wow, yeah. I said, do you have time for a cup of coffee? She says, yeah, absolutely. And she says, well, what's up? What's going on? I said, well, I have one question and one question only. And if you say no, it's okay. And if you say yes, it's okay. It's up to you. Are we in business, yes or no? And she left. And I thought, man, I screwed it, right? So I finished my coffee. She came back with her PA and said, this is our new speaker on board. Take all of his information. We'll have a chat afterwards. And left again. So that was the beginning of a journey that was a journey based on sleeping in your car because I had to choose putting gas in the car or booking a hotel room of, all kinds of situations that is what I call paying the price to get somewhere in life. Because people see you on a stage and they go, oh my God, he's so lucky. No, yeah.
Easy for him.
Yeah. But the times you went through all kinds of, moments, you almost quit, right? They don't see that and they don't have to. I mean, but this is very, I want to share this here because people or the one who is listening this and the one who says, hey, if he can, I can, that's the whole purpose, right? And then afterwards, Veronica called me. She says, could you represent Tony? Because you followed him for 2 years as a bodyguard. I mean, you know his ins and outs and stuff. Would you represent him as a speaker doing Unleash the Power and then previews all over the planet? And I said, what are you talking about? She said, well, you heard me, right? I said, okay. And that was also the journey. I started collaborating with them more closely with the organization of Robbins Research International. It was an amazing time. Did that for about a decade. And it was only in 2023 when I moved on again with my own company. And yeah, a long answer to a short question.
And in terms of going through things and people from the outside looking in and saying it's easy for him, I want to go back to something you shared with us earlier. One of the things you went through was being bullied at school. Do you have any positive memories of that time of your life, or is that period of your life kind of overshadowed entirely by this kind of shadow of being severely bullied at school? And when did it start? How old were you when it started?
I think it started somewhere at the age of 10, 9, 10, something like that.
And do you know why? I mean, there's never any kind of logical reason for bullying. Were you cleverer than everyone, or were you from a different social setting, or what?
Yeah, the thing is, today more than ever, when a child has something, they put a stamp on their forehead and they call it ADHD, or they call it they're this, they're that, and we're gonna give them some pills for that. And that's in those days that didn't exist. My mom went to the doctor, says, "Hey, my son is like very active, very." She says, and the doctor said, "Be happy. Can you imagine your kid is sitting in a corner doing nothing? So be happy. He's active. He's busy. And that was one of the things that I wanted to prove myself. Each time somebody said you can't do it, watch me. I'll show you, right? But then I did certain stupid things I shouldn't be doing, and then the kids had fun with me, and then they started bullying me with me.
Like what? What sort of things did you get into?
Yeah, for example, we had these, a pen, and then we would take out the interior, and we put some paper in our mouth, and then make a little ball, put it in the pen, and
Yeah.
shoot it at the board, right?
Yeah.
And they would say to me, "Hey, you don't dare do that during class." I said, "Well, come on, man. Yeah, you don't. Oh, no, you can't. You can't. We know you can't. We know you can't." And then, and my inner me said, "Watch me." And during class, now at that very moment, the teacher would turn around and he saw me doing it, and I got punished for that.
Mm.
And it was outside in the playground. They would laugh with me and bully me with that situation. And then one would like touch me, and I would turn around, and that kid went to hospital, broke his nose. And then I got like into a lot of trouble like that. From one thing came another thing, They would destroy my pencil bag. They would throw away my lunch. They would do all kinds of things. And I would react upon, and which is a normal thing, if you ask me. And I got in a lot of trouble. But then during the period of from 11 till 18, I started realizing when you go in Belgium, you go from when you're 12 years old, you go from basic school to like how you call that? Is it high school? Something like
high
that.
school, secondary school,
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
And then the bullying got worse and worse and worse. And then all of a sudden I got thrown out of school because of my behavior. So when I was 12 years old, went to to high school or whatever, first year, had to do my first year all over again because of my numbers. They were very bad. And then the second year, I went to, so after 2 years, I went to the second grade. Didn't go well neither. So I had to do that again as well. So over 2 years, I did 4 years over 2 years, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. Yeah. And did you get bullied for that?
Yeah, and then I got thrown out of school. I mean, and the principal was an uncle of mine, and he told my mom, "Your son is no longer welcome here." Blah, 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 blah. My mom cried in the car. I mean, I was a pretty disaster in school. But that came from all the bullying because people acted upon me, so I reacted upon in a sometimes very bad way because I want to defend myself, right?
Is that, just going back to my earlier question, do you have any positive memories of that, or is when you think about that time, does it have this cloud?
I had lots of positive things. Yeah, absolutely.
What kept you going?
I just kept going.
In terms of these positive experiences, what did engage you, either intellectually or physically or whatever at that age?
When I turned 12, 13, 14, 15, and those days you were allowed to work as a kid as well. So I went working when I was 13, and I came home one day saying, "Mom, I have a job." I was 13, and my mom said, "What?" Turned to my dad, "Did you hear that? Our little one has a job. He's 13." And it was not a big deal. He was selling ice cream in a swimming pool and stuff like that, like a little small job. And they allowed me doing it. And it was an amazing experience. And I didn't have a lot of money at the end of the day, but it was an experience. And when I turned 15, after going through a whole of like things that very bad things, very like the bullying and stuff, my brother is a chef. And he worked in hotels and stuff. And I was watching this and I was like, maybe I can become a chef myself. And that was a big turning point for me to look forward to, because I worked in restaurants and swimming pools and stuff when I was 13. And then when I turned 15, I was allowed to work in a proper hotel in the kitchen and with my brother. that is. And that was something I was looking forward to each time the weekend came along, or evening, say, hey, could you come along and help me out in the kitchen here? And so I would do that. That was for me like a positive thing. And still today, I'm a foodie. I love cooking myself still today. And I'm a certified chef today as well.
Well, I was going to say, did you study it? Did you take
Yeah.
it to the next level?
So I studied.
Hang on a second. I'm trying to get a sense, a feel of how you've managed to get all this in. So you've been in the special forces, you did all that stuff. You went army, in the Navy, and you've been Tony Robbins' personal bodyguard, and now you're telling us that you're also a trained chef as well. When did you fit that in? When did you do that?
So from the, I know it's a bit confusing, but it's my attitude is always an attitude to, okay, you did it, what's next? And what's next? And what's next? And I don't sit down like crying or mumbling, oh my God, why me? This is not what. No. Action. Come on, man. Let's do it. I went to school from 0 to 6, from 6 to 12, and then from 12 to 15, going through hell. And at the age of 15, we decided I would go to hotel school. And then I got my diploma in hotel school, being a certified chef, maître d'hôtel, and sommelier, which is the whole thing with wine. And then at that time, I took the decision to prove myself again to the world and joined the Navy. And from the Navy, I went to engineering, jumping out of planes, and then flying as a pilot, student pilot. And then from there on, life went on. And in 1991, I came back from the armed forces to Belgium because I was stationed in Germany. And I came back to Belgium in 1991 and decided, and don't be surprised now, decided to become a truck driver. So I saw the whole of Europe, because for me, it was not driving the truck. It was not handling goods. It was discovering Europe from behind the big screen, which is called the screen of a truck, the windshield. And that actually happened. I went everywhere in Europe and did all kinds of nice jobs. And today, more than ever, I have a lot of respect for truck drivers. I mean, I've done it myself for 4 years. And after 4 years, I started my company. Yeah.
It's going to go back to that 15-year-old that found something in chefing and that environment that was a respite from the bullying. What made you not carry on down that path? Because that could quite easily have been your life.
I think the adventurous side in me. So I love being creative, but also love adventure. The creative side in me was the chef. I was in the kitchen, doing all kinds of things with food and stuff, and I loved it. But then the adventurous side in me said, hey, what's next? And joining the forces, and especially the Navy, I'm born and raised at the seaside. The Navy always inspired me. And that's how I joined the Navy. And I was like, yeah.
And is there an armed forces background in your family? Did you have anything to inspire you there, or did you?
Lots of my family was in the force. My dad was a police officer. I've got a couple of cousins who were in the Navy and engineering as well. And yeah, we have a bit of a background in the forces. Yeah.
You mentioned your daughter at one stage a little bit earlier on. At what stage in your life did your children come along?
Wow. I was a student pilot at that time in 1988. Was my first daughter. Today she's 36 and has 3 kids of her own, by the way.
Hey, Granddad.
Yeah. In 1988, I had my first daughter. And then 1990, the second, 1992, the third. So 3 in a row. Each was 2 years and 2 months in between each of them. We didn't calculate that, by the way. And yeah, it's an amazing time.
How did you and their mother meet?
Their mother was a young girl coming to the hotel where I was working. Her mother was working at that hotel. So it's a very close, connection.
Yeah.
We knew each other, but it was not really anything going on. But then all of a sudden something started going on. And yeah, from one thing comes another, right?
Next thing you know, you got three daughters, is it?
3 daughters, yeah. We were happily married for 88 years. And due to circumstances, we went through a divorce. And then I raised my kids for 15 years as a single dad on top of everything.
Wow.
Yeah.
Do you ever look back on your life and ever think that whether it was you that did it all? It's like they're just, you seem to have lived already 5 lifetimes in one, and it's hugely inspiring to hear about, just you haven't used a term specifically, but this mindset of what's next and setting a goal and being specific and going for it and action. I'm hugely inspired, as I'm sure the listener is, in terms of what that has brought to you in your life. But do you ever look back and kind of think, wow, that's amazing. Was that really me?
That's funny you're asking me this. It's not that long ago. I was listening to Les Brown, and Les Brown, public speaker. He's in his 70s, I guess. And he said, "Can you imagine you're sitting in your rocking chair, and you're 85 years old, and you look back at your life? Would you have a big smile on your face, or would you have tons of regrets?" And to be frankly honest with you, I will have no regrets at all. On the contrary, a big smile on my face and butterflies in my belly. And even if that would happen tomorrow, and I'm going to touch a piece of wood here, but I will never have any regrets of my actions and my results. Went like everybody else on this planet. I went through, a lot of challenges in life, a massive amount of challenges, and sometimes still today. But that's part of life.
I mean, even that challenge of being a single dad for 15 years. I mean, for some people, that defines them completely, and they never kind of move on from that. But you said that was at the time. Well, what time of your life were you a single dad?
It was 1994. So in 1991, I came back from the forces, and then 2, 3, and 1994 that happened. And I think I can easily say I was blessed with the fact that I had a military background. Why do I say that? Because of the discipline. And, my kids still remember and remind me today of it. It's my way or the highway, period. And although they're already 36, 34, and 32.
So even now that's true.
Yeah, but what happens as well is that now they are applying it themselves in their own life, and the oldest one with her kids as well. It is, and there's discipline, and there's action, and there's system involved, and that's special. That's special. But at that time, I was not really thinking about, do I have a choice? Is there an alternative? No, you just go, you just do it. And I do have to admit, I received help from here and there. I was not always alone doing it, but still, you have the responsibility of your kids, and that was a major, learning lesson as well for me about certain things in life. How to raise your kids. What do you give them in terms of values? Yeah, it was, yeah. And today, more than ever, they're super grateful.
Let's put a slight twist on the conversation. If I was chatting to one or all three of your daughters now, and I asked them, what values did your dad pass on to you and seek to instill in you as you were growing up, what would they say?
Wow. Have discipline, and everything is possible. Everything is possible. And have discipline.
What does discipline mean to you when you talk about it in terms of your values?
Discipline is implementing a system that works for you and that will bring you towards you want to go. For example, I get up at 5 a.m. Is there anybody saying I have to get up at 5 a.m? No, I just do it because that's my discipline. That's my way of going through life. And I know by that time I'll be shaved and showered. By that time I'll have my first coffee. I have a system, some kind of time management, discipline, because I got more on my plate today, more than ever, still things I'm developing. And if I want to develop that, I have to have a certain way of working, a time management, a discipline. And even if there's a morning I don't want to get up, I mean, we all have those mornings or days. I go, oh my God, not today. Leave me the heck alone. I said, no, get out, right? And I will kick my own butt and get out. And that kind of discipline is very important if you want to achieve certain things in life, especially what I'm going through now. I mean, not going through because I chose to do it, but it's discipline is involved in whatever you want to achieve in life. And if you don't have the discipline, you might achieve it, but it's going to take you far more longer than if you have the discipline of certain actions on a daily basis. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. You mentioned earlier about ADHD. Mm-hmm. Do you have ADHD, or is it just immaterial to you about whether you do or not?
I think I can easily say I don't care. because people say, if you would like to know yes or no, maybe 10%, right? But when people say they have this, they have that, I say, stop it. Why would you put somebody, stamp on somebody's forehead and say, oh, they have this or they have that? Yes, but the doctor said, well, I mean, with all due my respect for doctors, but they don't have all knowledge in them, and they're following a system. But if you let nature handle you in a natural way with natural products, which is also one of my things, I never touch one piece of medication in my life. I live on homeopathics and herbs and oils. Let nature do the work, and it's gonna be okay.
Mm.
I don't say I will have one day I'll need it. I don't know, right? And I will allow it. But until today, I never touched anything. I mean, did I have the flu? Yes. Did I have COVID? I had COVID, right? But I used natural products, and that for me is, an important thing.
I was just going to say, for the sake of the listener who can't see you, if they're listening and not watching, you look in incredible shape. I don't know, how old are you? Well, how old are you? Because you look like you're in your early 40s.
Oh, thank you.
But I know you can't. But I know you can't possibly be
I
with
can
what,
have that.
with what we've shared, with what we've talked about in your life so far. But you look in great shape. What's your secret? Is it that?
Well, first question. I'm 59, turning 60.
Okay. You're lying. Just for the record, you're lying.
No, I'm not. I'm 59 and I'm turning 60 this year. What I do is that I handle principles that I've been taught by my parents, especially my mom. But also I learn from speakers that I surround myself with that have higher values. And what I mean about that, for example, I got spirulina and wheatgrass in powder form. I would put that in a bottle with water, shake it, drink it. And does it taste well? No, it's not. Certainly not a soda. It's sometimes it's horrible, but I do it because I want to take care of I call it my temple. Drink water as much as you can. Make sure you eat raw vegetables. Make sure, I was with Joseph McClendon. He's a speaker who is an associate of Tony Robbins. And I was backstage, and he said, I said, Joseph, where do you get all that energy, man? He jumped on the trampoline, jumped on stage. He wasn't 64 at that time, and he's now 70 or 71. And he still does it, by the way. And I said, where do you get all that energy from? He says, go for green, go for blue, and shake your ass. I said, okay, can you explain that to me? He says, go for green means eat raw vegetables as much as you can. And the color green. Why? Color green vegetables and plants in general have the same structure as blood. The green vegetables or plants is called chlorophyll. The blood is called hemoglobin. So if you eat a raw vegetable, color green, you'll increase your energy and make sure that your blood will have a complete, the structure of your blood will be from a far more higher quality than if you don't. I said, that's interesting because I already do that. He says, oh, wow, awesome. He says, go for blue, make sure you have fresh air on a daily basis, and make sure to drink water every day as much as you can. Right? On the internet, you can find, you calculate your weight and your age and stuff, and then say you should drink as much water a day. So fresh air, water, fresh water, green vegetables, raw, and then shake your ass. He says, if you do 10,000 steps a day and you respect the green and the blue and the shake your ass, as I told you, you'll have the same energy as me. And I was like, wait a minute, that makes sense. And I started doing that. And to be honest, yeah, it works. But you have to do it on a consistent basis. You don't do it once a week or once a month. You do it every day.
Yeah. Going back to that discipline thing again, make a decision and see it through.
Maybe you should have some water, Peter.
Well, I am drinking as well. I've nearly finished this one. There are so many places we could go in this conversation. I think this might actually formally be the first not a straight line conversation that goes over 2 episodes. It's
maybe we can continue and have another one. Yeah.
You mentioned a couple of things. I just asked a question. Would you describe yourself as a Buddhist?
That's a very, very interesting question, by the way. I studied all kinds of religions, and the reason is I'm curious. I'm super curious. So one day I was in London, in Watford, in the Krishna temple, and it's with the Hindus and Krishna and all. And I was like, wow, this is interesting. And I started reading about it, studying it. I said, that's interesting. And then I was in I think, is it Wimbledon? I think it's Wimbledon. There's a Thai Buddhist temple. I was in the Thai Buddhist temple in Melbourne. I was in a Nepalese Buddhist temple in Bendigo in Australia. I was in so many different, and I've been raised Catholic, right? And I sometimes forget the difference between Christian and Catholic, and there's all kinds of, But what I do know is that, long story short, I pick bits and pieces from everywhere and create my own religion, a religion that makes sense in life. And when I had I have a very simple example. Somebody said, Renee, you're teaching body language, right? I said, yeah. Can I use that for everything? I said, sure, don't worry. Do remember one thing though, karma will come back to you if you use it for the wrong reasons. And that's one of my basic principles. Karma will come back. That's for sure.
So you mentioned there for the first time what it is that you're doing now. You teach body language. What does that mean? How do you do it? In what forms? To who? Where? And why?
And why? The why is maybe the biggest thing. Is that when I was a kid, I was watching people and I would listen to them and then say, why is what they say not matching what they do? And I did not know anything about body language, by the way, at that time. And I was like very curious. And I was always curious, how do people think? Why do they think what they think? Why do they do what they do? Even in the forces, I was an instructor for a long time. I wanted to know, why do people react upon this and this and this in the way they react upon? And I was always curious about all of these things. And then later on in 1995, I started my own company, and name it, I had it. All products of personal development, I had them. And I said, why don't I have any clients? And somebody said to me, Renee, you have to have a niche. And that's so true. And I went home asking myself, what's a niche? I had no clue. That's where I started. And although I had been teaching before, and I started doing some research, and in those days, Google didn't exist. It was like, find out yourself and go to the library, rent some books and read about it. And so, yeah, I found certain things, and I was like, yeah, if I specialize in that area, I might become successful and stuff. And then all of a sudden I was invited to go to a body language free workshop. And I said, body language, get lost, man. This is for hippies. This is not for me. That was my attitude in those days. And but the people inviting me, they convinced me, and I went anyway. Best thing ever that could ever happen to me. And because I found out that I got my answers now. Why do people do what they do and say differently? And I started studying, and still today I study far more in depth now. And because it's pure curiosity. But then I started doing lots of these seminars, but I didn't make any money. And I was like, wait a minute, how can I make money, decent money? If I want some more money, I will have to change my mindset and listen to certain people. And there was one thing, at a certain time, somebody said, who has your money? And I was like, okay, makes sense. And it's companies, because I work with lots of individuals, but a certain percentage of those individuals, I had to chase them for my money, and they wouldn't pay. And there's always something going on. I was like so fed up with it. Now I started like, okay, connect with a company, connect with another company. And what I found out is that companies do pay their invoices, let's say 99% of them. And that was a big game changer for me. And then the next step was like changing your prices. And then to come back to your question, I teach nonverbal communication, negotiating strategies, and contract management in companies. And it's all connected to each other. How do you negotiate? You use your nonverbal communication. When you negotiate, how do I close a contract? So it's contract management, negotiations, and nonverbal communication combined with verbal, obviously. And that's what I teach. I just got back from the Middle East, and the biggest thing I did was last year in November in the Middle East was a DBA, Doctors in Business Administration, which is university level. And it's amazing when you see people having those aha moments when they say, "Oh, now I get it. It works like this and this and this and this," because I say, "Yeah," and it's all connected. And I say, "Oh, wow!" And that is an amazing feeling when people call you sometimes and, "Hey, Renee, we did this and this and this, and we got this and this result through applying the nonverbal techniques you taught us." And I say, "Wow, congrats!" I mean, yeah, yeah.
I'm not surprised, but yeah, well,
Well, 90% of all communication is nonverbal. So if you know that already, plus 90%, if you know, and some people say 80%, some said 95%, something like that. The biggest part in communication is nonverbal. And when you start understanding it and using it, your results go through the roof. And I took a decision to do it in business, in companies, worldwide. So I did it in Australia, Thailand, Middle East, in the US, and most of most of the time in Europe, for sure. Mm-hmm.
So what stage was that transition when Veronica offered you to do the Unleash the Giant Within previews for Tony Robbins? Were you just starting out with that, or?
No, I was already running my businesses.
Okay.
Yeah, I was already running my businesses.
Already with the focus on nonverbal communication?
At that time, yeah. And what I do have to admit that having that opportunity with Veronica, for example, made me take the decision to go completely international. Because before that time, I was only in Belgium, Holland a little bit in France, but that's it. And I went from time to time to the UK, but not big business. And then once I got that opportunity to collaborate and see that Unleash Power then with Tony, and then see how they work, and I was backstage, on stage, or wherever they went, I went, and I was like, okay, it's working like this. Well, if they can, I can. And then I took a decision, and then from one thing came another, and all of a sudden I was international. And but it's a decision, and I do have to admit it's great, it's awesome. Living out of a suitcase, amazing, but you pay a price for that too, right? I've been living from a suitcase now since 2018, which is 7 years, and I'm a little bit like, it's time for something else.
Are you going to change it?
Yeah. We have plans for the plans already rolling, and we got plans on how to settle down and go to a certain country and settle down there. And
so this is quite rare for me in these conversations, is like keeping, no, I normally do a pretty good job of keeping track of my guest's story and where they were at different times, but you really making me work for my money here, Renee, with everything. I want to go back to the story of when your friend offered you that job to be Tony Robbins's personal bodyguard. You said you stopped you had a business, but you just help me out now that I've got a bit more understanding of the different parts of your journey. Where did that happen in terms of everything else? Did you have your company then?
I had my company already, and I was continuing doing my company. But then when I got a phone call, hey, the security detail is wanted at that space in that time. Could you fly in? I flew in.
Got it.
Because that was not 100% job day in, day out.
Okay.
Far from.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. So what's it like working with Tony Robbins and someone like Tony Robbins at that proximity?
It's amazing. It's awesome. Sometimes people ask me, is he like that all the time? And I can easily say yes. One bomb of energy, but also moments of like calming down, meditating. He is really doing what he's saying. And I shared lots of stages with lots of different speakers. And sometimes speakers don't do what they say. Mm. And that's what I saw in Tony. He is really an example. On stage, behind stage, private life. Absolutely. And working with him gave me so much insights and different ways of thinking about life in general. I could go on and on and on and speak for hours about this topic, but it is a fact that he had a super positive influence on my life, for sure. It was a game changer for me.
Yeah. I'm surprised that you didn't go into a bit of a tiz when I asked you that first question about, when you think about a time in your life was a bigger zag, because you've had so many in your life. It's like it really is proving what a early guest on the podcast said, is like, one of the things I've learned, Peter, is that life is the zag. Life isn't something else that happens. It's like, as you zig and as you zag and as you do this and as you do that, that is life. And it's just be where you are to the fullest extent of all that you are at that time, to make the most of where you are and who you are.
Exactly. Last year, somebody died at the age of 26 that I know personally.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear.
About cancer. That's okay. And it was cancer. And at the age of 26, passed away. Why do I mention this? Is that there's no guarantee for tomorrow.
Mm.
Not for anybody. If you know there's no guarantee, why wouldn't you live to the fullest of your potential? And it starts with making a plan. And I said, what's your dream? I don't know what my dream is. So the first thing to find out, what's my dream? What would I like to go for in life? And if it's working for a company from 8 till 5 in the morning, from 9 to 5, for example, if that's your dream, do it. If it makes you happy, it makes you happy. If it doesn't make you happy, do something else. But make sure to do something that makes you happy, that at the end of the day, you can say like, wow, what a great day. Thank you, Lord, for having me.
What does stop people, do you think?
Okay, personal example. My mom, 86. Hey, did you see about that fire in Holland, in Arnhem? And did you see about that plane that dropped 8 bombs on their own country in Korea? And did you see? I said, Mom, stop. I don't have a television. I don't care. The simple answer to your question is that people let themselves influence so easily. And the influences from outside are from such a low frequency that people get depressed. And you see, did you hear about such and such and such? And and then it's holding them back from being limitless. If you say to me, Renee, you can't do it, nah, watch me, I'll show you.
You watch me, I'll show you. Fuck off. Yeah, I was making notes earlier, Renee.
And that is how I look at things. Is that it's and then people say, yeah, but the government, or but this institution, or but. I said, listen, the only but you have is the one hanging on your back. That's your but. Take action. Start writing down what you want. Put a plan to it, or create a plan that is creating your dreams and achieving your dreams, and whatever the dream is. Make sure it's a realistic thing, for sure. Because right now we are looking forward to build a resort, for example, 8 resorts, by the way, all over the planet, and wellness resorts, health and wellness, and ecological health and wellness resorts connected with luxury. And it's been a study of 8 years. And after 8 years, I'm now finally discussing matters with investors. And people say, why would you do that? I said, because it's my dream. It's all about health. It's all about, ecological. It's going back to nature. It's going to, and we're going to do it anyway. If I would be you, Renee, I don't know. I say, first of all, you're not me. Let me be very clear on that. And secondly, what I do is none of your freaking business. And secondly, what you think about me is none of my business. So I'm not clear. And I go, oh my God, you can't talk to you. I said, that's true. You have a great day. And I continue my dream. And people say, do you ever lose friends, like having that attitude? I said, yeah, I lost lots of friends. But that won't hold me back, or hold me back from achieving what I want to achieve in life. If that makes sense. So
it does. It does make sense.
And to come back to your question, what is holding people back from doing that is that they are so influenced and easily distracted through all these social media platforms. And I'm on social media. I'm on 27 platforms, by the way. But I don't get distracted. I make sure to prevent myself from getting distracted from all that content.
27 platforms. Are there that many? Jeez.
There are hundreds of them, Peter.
Man.
Thousands of them.
And are you on them personally, or do you have people that are on them for you?
I am personally on it. I have nobody doing that for me, at least not for now. It's going to change in the future. And I'm not always posting on all of them at the same time, because that would be mad work.
So has your business, since 95, has your business just, and I do it in inverted commas because there's nothing pejorative about just, been you, or have you had a team? And
Me, myself, and I. Me, myself, and I, in a sense that I know now all the ins and outs. And when I say it's not going to stay like that, we're going to now grow. I have no choice. I have to. And especially with the resorts that we're going to build, going to have a team working together. But until today, it was me, myself, and I. Yeah. And is it easy? No, but I know all the ins and outs now. And when somebody will approach me and say, hey, Renee, this is not working because of this and this and this, I said, oh, really? Did you try this and this and this? Oh, no, I didn't. Okay, try it. Let's see what happens. And now I know all the mechanics. And a lot of people say, that's not smart of you. You should put people on there and have a team working for you. You don't have to know all of that stuff. Maybe they are right, but I want to know everything. I'm very curious how things are working. My granddad, when I was 6 years old, he gave me an old clock, a grandma clock with these 2 bells on it. When alarm went off, like, digga, 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 you know.
Yeah. It doesn't so much wake you up as like physically drag you out of bed.
And he said to me, take everything out of that clock and put it back together and make sure it works. I was so curious. I wanted to know. And I took everything out bit by bit, and then put it back together. Obviously, the thing didn't work, but it's curiosity. I want to know more. And I want to be, yeah, that's just how I am.
And it seems to me that the ultimate curiosity you have is about yourself.
Yeah. In what sense?
That you are seeking to know ever more about yourself, to do ever more things.
Yeah, I mean, how far can one go is you're limitless. If you know that Albert Einstein once said, we only use 0.00001% of our brain. So there's so much left, we don't do anything with it. And when people say, hey, I use 50% of my brain, be careful with that, because it's not true. But I do know that there's so much out there. And many years ago, I couldn't choose. There was so much possibilities, but then I took a decision. You have to have a niche. You go through that body language thing, really interesting. I grabbed it with both hands. And then the second part of my life is health, right? And I've been taught by my parents, health. All the people I share stages with, it's about health. And I said, what can I do with all of that? And I had a friend of mine in Dubai, and we sat together, and he says, Renee, with all your experiences that you have in life, if you put all of that together in one big jar or a casserole or whatever, and you would stir it, what will come out? And I thought, that's an interesting exercise. I'll do that. I'll put everything in there, from transport and flying and the army and everything in there, hotel, school, food. And I came up with a resort. When I was 12 years old, I went skiing for the very first time in Switzerland, and I fell in love with log homes. I saw a log home, to be specific, a house built with trees. And I was watching it, and I fell in love with it. I said, one day I'll build one for myself. And it actually didn't happen, but I lived in one for myself in 2002 for a year. What an experience. And I said, wait a minute, resort.
When you say what an experience, why? What made you say that?
Oh, it's such a beautiful thing to experience. Living in a log home. It's the wood is cracking changing from winter to summertime. You hear the wood cracking. You smell the wood. It's a natural product. It has such a beautiful energy as well. If you live in a brick house or you live in a wooden house, the energy is completely different. There's certain vibrations and certain frequencies. That's a different topic, but it's amazing what a wooden house does to a human being, in the positive sense, that is. And I had such a beautiful experience.
Where were you in the world?
Belgium.
In Belgium.
Yeah, in Belgium, yeah. But fast forward to the resort, for example, we're building now resorts with wooden houses with log homes. And even the sauna, the wellness center, everything is in wood. We go back to nature. Even the products we're going to use in the hair salon department are without chemicals. People say that doesn't exist, hair salon products without chemicals. I said, you know what? This is the company we're working with. Check them out. They have zero chemicals, because I want to go back to nature. And that's the whole concept that came out of all the experiences of life. What I'm doing right now is actually the cherry on my cake. If there's anything I want to accomplish before I leave this beautiful planet, is that. I'm going to get there bit by bit. It's not easy, but if it would be easy, everybody would do it, right?
Well, yeah, this is true. So what countries will these resorts be in?
So the first one, according to the plan, the first one is in Ras Al Khaimah in the United Arab Emirates, which is north from Dubai, because you got 7 Emirates in the United Arab Emirates, and one of them is Ras Al Khaimah. That's the first. The second is going to be Florida, Peace Island in Florida, which is north from Punta Gorda. Then we have Portugal in the Algarve, and then we go to Kenya, Africa. Then we have Australia in Victoria in the southeast, and then we're going to Hien Huan in Thailand, which is east, in the middle. Then we have Vancouver, Canada, and then the last one is in Peru. And
wow.
So these are the 8 locations we're going to build, and we're getting there bit by bit.
So a couple of questions in there. Who is we?
I'm talking about me, and then I got a team, and they are still having their own jobs, but they're already said, hey, we're in. And what I mean about that, these people are, for example, one lady is now running 1,800 hotel rooms in different hotels. She's responsible as the manager of all of these hotel rooms. Another one is in Qatar in the wellness sector, very busy in all of that stuff. But she says, I want to make a shift in my job. And I said, yeah, what are we talking about? And then she sent her CV. And then, I got different people already on board, and they said, listen, we're going to stay in our job. But the moment, Renee, you're up and running, what's going to happen? I said, well, you join. We're going to have our offices, and we're going to, you just quit your job, and you'll be on the payroll in my company.
Wow. And what influenced the decision about those specific places? Just hearing you and seeing you mention the place names, there you seem to be resonating really strongly with all of them. You've been to all the places, and
the only place I didn't go was Peru. I didn't go to Peru yet, but I know people who went there, and they said, hey, this and this and this. That's okay. I still have to visit the place, but.
So what was that? What was that journey like of figuring out where these where these places are going to be?
It has to be close to a water source, because we're going to pull water out of the ocean or whatever the water is coming from, and then purify it. If it's coming out of the ocean, it has to go through a desalination system first, then purification system, and then actually the water will be drinkable. That's the first one of the first things we look at. Is there water in the neighborhood? Because water is becoming a very, very high-end luxury today all over the planet.
Mm.
And then the second is the location, in terms of how do people fly in, right? Can they land with a private jet, for example? Because people who pay a certain amount of money to stay in a certain area, you have to give them the luxury of landing your own plane. These are all little things you have to watch out for. And especially with the government, different governments, different rules and regulations, different laws. Also in terms of personnel. Where does the personnel come from? And I like to work with local people. So you give work to local people. And then in certain countries, governments are supporting you as well in terms of taxes and in terms of, these are all little things you have to, calculate. And yeah.
It sounds like a full-time job, but you've still got everything else on top of it. I was just thinking while you were talking there, Renee, I should probably introduce you to the guest that I had on the podcast literally just before you, a Romanian lady called Raluca, now lives in London. At the top of her corporate career, she was responsible for all of the events management for the Marriott international chain in Southeast Asia Pacific region. She left that, went and did an executive MBA at Oxford Business School, and is now her startup is aimed at transforming how high-end luxury resorts and hotels employ and train staff, hospitality staff, to give staff more flexibility and better opportunity with career growth. So she's in that space, luxury hospitality. You're in that space, so it seems that it would be a potentially useful introduction for both of you.
Yeah, it would be great if you could. Yeah, that would be awesome. Yeah, it's it's a journey, but then to go back to our conversation about health and about healthy food, and I never drink sodas, I never eat sugar, I don't drink milk, I don't eat pork. The reason is I take care of my temple. Otherwise, I would not be able to do what I do today. When you live a life that is very organized and sometimes I got my levels of stress too. I'm a human being. But when you if you don't take care of your temple, you're not going to make it.
Mm. I'm smiling because at the same time as I hear you say that, I'm also hearing you in an earlier part of our conversation saying at one point in your life, you wondered if you were going to be a smoker for the rest of your life. And just where you are now and where you are then, my God, could not be more different.
And thank God I quit smoking, because it's changed my life tremendously.
Yeah. Just think, I mean, that could arguably take the prize for the biggest zag, because that decision to stop smoking then unlocked the opportunity to work with Tony Robbins, which then, you know what I mean? It's just incredible.
I mean, I couldn't go on the stair. If I did 10 stairs, I had to stop and breathe and breathe. I couldn't breathe anymore. Yeah. In the morning, first thing I did, open up my eyes, was take a cigarette and a cup of coffee.
Mm.
And that was the kind of thing I did for so many years. And actually today, when I go running, I leave 30 people in their 30s and 40s behind me. It's a big change. And when I see people smoking, I feel sad for them. I would like to help them, but if they don't want to be helped. And I was like, well, what would make me stop smoking? I said, well, do you have a big dream? If you could reach your dream, but you have to quit smoking, Would that be a reason why? Well, I don't know. I said, okay, leave it. Keep smoking. Don't worry about it.
When the why is big enough, everything else takes care of itself.
When the dream is big enough, the facts don't count.
Say that again. Say that again.
When the dream is big enough, the facts don't count.
The facts don't count. Wow.
That's actually, I have to mention the guy who mentioned that to me. So in 1995, I got approached by somebody from network marketing, Amway company, whatever. And the crown ambassador in that organization was Dexter Yeager. And the guy died a couple of years ago, but he was a very inspirational guy. And he said, when the dream is big enough, the facts don't count. And I remembered that for the rest of my days. That's all. And when the dream is big enough, you just keep going, and you'll fall with your nose on the ground, and you're gonna get hit, and you're gonna lose money. I lost money. One day I lost 50K in 1 second.
What happened?
I invested in. I'm not gonna mention any names here because for privacy reasons, but I invested in the Middle East, in a certain country, in a certain company, and that country was suspected of certain things and got shut off of the outside world. And there went my money. And I was like, in 50K and like gone. I was like, man, I was crazy. I went ballistic. I went nuts. But then because of my attitude and how I live, it took me like 5 to 10 minutes to change that attitude and mindset. Like, this is it. These are the facts. Bam, 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 bam. What are you going to do about it? Can you do anything about it? Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Move on. And, but it was a sad moment, 50K in 1 second. It was like, what the heck, man?
Yeah, that's gonna hurt anybody, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
For a little while.
Then, yeah. And I was pretty sad about that fact, but it is what it is. And you win some, you lose some. And I lost many times in life, but I won many times in life as well.
A little bit earlier on, Renee, you said, somebody said to you about, what if you take everything that you've had in your life and you put it into a big casserole pot and stir it up, and what came out for you was, was the results and stuff. Is that where your book came from as well, when you kind of started thinking about all the different parts of your life?
The first book, I was asked by a guy named Amandeep, and he's a coach as well in India and partially in London. And Amandeep called me because we did both preview sessions for Tony. And he called me. He said, Renee, I'm putting a book together with 20 authors about, being unstoppable, being like, keep going, you never quit. Would you be able to share your story in that book as one of the authors? I said, well, sure, absolutely. So we made an agreement, and I did that. And it was 20 authors, and the title of the book is Unstoppable Courage. That means you never quit. You never, ever quit. You keep going. And then that book came out, and I was reading my own story then afterwards. I went, wow, man, is this me? Shit. And it was such a, motivation to write my own book. And then there's a lady, Marja, and she's from the US, but she was stationed in Germany with the Air Force. She was a JAG, which is a lawyer in the Air Force. She was an officer. And I was in the forces, and we met through social media. We started chatting and chatting and chatting. Long story short, she quit her job as a JAG in the forces, went back to the US, and became a publisher. And she says, with your stuff in terms of body language, you should write a book about this. And I went like, sure, you have a great day. So I was not interested. And then she says, yeah, but that will give you more credibility. You can use it as a more expensive business card. When you go somewhere, you give a book away and you say, hey, listen, it would be a pleasure doing business with you. Listen, this is my book. Have a look at it. And I said, yeah, that makes sense, but I don't have time. And she says, you do have time. She was nagging me for 5 years. And but during the 5 years, I started writing and stuff and putting stuff together. And then it took 5 years to publish the book. And the book is out since 2022. And I'm happy I did that, because it's also, my story is in there as well. And it's helping people to not only read the book, but they can work in it. They can write in it. It's a workbook. It's a reading book. It's not a romance. It's body language, right? And a lot of people all over the planet now said, hey, I read your book, and we did this and we did that. And I took notes here and took notes there. And what is in the book is basic knowledge. People don't think about it. But once you start paying attention to it, your results start changing. And that's the whole goal, is to make sure that people read, write in it, work with it, and then apply it, and then get different results. Because we all know that, knowledge is amazing, but unless you apply it, right, it's rubbish.
What's the name of the book?
The Ultimate Guide to Body Language. And we got plus 560 pictures in it. So pictures where you can really get all kinds of postures and
nice.
Yeah. So people can actually see, and underneath the picture is like a definition. What you see, and then there's a little exercise underneath it. What do you see? What does your gut feeling say? Did you see that before with somebody? And a couple of things. And then you can write in it. And then maybe my auntie, whoever, did that too. Oh my God, I'm going to write that down. And next time I'm going to pay attention to her and say, hey, why don't you, things like that. And it's good.
And presumably you can then use it as a mirror to reflect on yourself and to say, how am I communicating non-verbally?
Well, in non-verbal communication, there's 3 ways of looking at it. The first way is to analyze yourself first. Know yourself first before you know anybody else. And once you know who you are, you can then find out who somebody else is through the verbal, but most of the time through the non-verbal. So you start reading their body language and the non-verbal communication, the intonation, the tonality that they use, all the gestures, the postures, and when you ask a question, where do they look? Do they look up, left, up, right? How does that work? When they say something and it should be a yes, but they not know, things like that. And then, so you analyze yourself first. Who am I? You analyze the other. And then you can use body language to moderate conversations.
How do you mean?
So you can use your body language. For example, somebody in a hair salon, when you go to a hair salon, what do people talk about mostly? About their misery, things went wrong. My auntie this, my uncle here. And did you see this in television? And the radio just tell and the government here. And, so what people do in a hair salon, not all of them, but let's say 80%, they share negativity or realistic stuff, but it's negative. Now, the hairdresser is touching the head of the person and they are listening to what is being said and they touch. So they absorb all the energy and all the words and all the vibrations. They absorb that. Now, by the end of the day, if they had 10 customers, they had 10 times that experience. Now, my question is, where do they go at the end of the day with their rubbish?
Back home.
So it's been said that a hairdresser is 50% hairdresser, 50% psychologist, because they listen to all the conversations day in, day out. And I said I was invited to a hair salon summit in Dallas. And that's what I actually shared on stage as well, is that you are standing behind the person or left or right, and that person can see you through the mirror. If you change your body language, you can actually change the conversation and moderate the conversation without saying one word. And you go like, how does that work? And then the rest is history. But it is a fact that you can moderate conversations by using your body language. If I explain to you the mirror match exercise, for example, I would copy paste you, copy paste you, copy paste you. And then all of a sudden, before you change, I change, you will copy paste me. And you're not even aware of it. That's the principle behind it.
It's borderline magic, really.
Yeah, it's psychology, it's magic, it's how the human brain is working. One day I was driving from London to France, and that's a bit of a funny story.
Your trucking job, or?
No, with my car.
Okay.
So I went from London, and it's not that long ago, by the way. And you have to go through customs, right? Because UK is no longer with Europe. So you go through customs, and the British customs says, "Hey, passport." Give me a passport. Looks at it. Oh, where are you from? Okay. Where are you heading to? Okay. What do you do for a job? I said, I teach body language in businesses. And he looked at my passport and looked at me. He says, "Can I ask you a question?" And I said, "Yeah, sure. You can ask me anything." He says, "What is my body language telling you?" Now, you do have to realize that guy from customs was sitting in that window, and behind him there was 2 police officers. And I said, "Sir, you don't want to know." He took my passport. He said, "Here, move on." Go. And I left. But what I would like to add to it is that you don't have to fake anything in life. Be you. That's the best body language. And that's what I tell people, like, yeah, but is my body language telling you? I said, listen, be you. That is the best body language you can produce. And if it's not good, if it's not okay, have a look at it, analyze yourself, and maybe you have to change certain things, right? I've got people say, hey, listen to me. I have something to tell you, but be very, very attentive. You see my hands? You're pushing people.
Just for the sake of the listener, Renee has got both palms up and he's pushing away.
Yeah, pushing away. Instead of that, just turn them open and say, hey, can I ask you a question? You know what I mean? These are little techniques that you might have to change in your body language. Okay. With open hands or closed hands. Closed hands, pushing people away. Open hands, inviting people. And that is on the subconscious level, right? If I tell you something, you are listening to me, my verbal words are going through from my conscious to your conscious. But if I ask people, how many of you pay attention to your tonality or your body language when you have a conversation with somebody? Do you pay attention to that? They said, well, no, duh. I said, well, do you know that nonverbal doesn't go from conscious to conscious? It goes from subconscious to subconscious. Verbally, we transfer 40 bits of data per second. Non-verbally, from subconscious to subconscious, we transfer 40 million bits of data per second, a million more, a million times more.
Wow.
And that's why it's so important to understand that nonverbal communication, if you use it in a proper way, your results will go through the roof. And this is, yeah, I mean, I could go on and on and on about it. I can give you a seminar here if you want, but.
Part of me wants you to go on and on and on, but another part of me has got one eye on the clock. It's a place to start to wrap up the conversation. I love what you said there, Renee, about be you. I mean, ultimately, that's the point of this podcast, is that you, Renee, you, the listener, that is who you are. That is how you show up in the world. Just be you, like we said earlier, to the fullest extent that you can be with where you are, because you ultimately are the value. It's not what you know. It's not what you do. It's who you are.
Everybody is unique on this planet. You know, there was a lady asked me, Renee, do you think I'm sexy? I said, can I be very frank with you? She says, yeah, absolutely. I said, first of all, you are sexy. And secondly, what another person thinks about you is none of your business.
Mm.
Be you and live to the fullest of your potential. And that's all you have to do in life. You were blessed being here.
Yeah.
You're here. You're blessed. It was, I don't know how many millions or billions or zillions of sperm cells that went through the whole system, and you came out of it as the winner.
Mm.
So why would you allow people put a stamp on your forehead saying, hey, you're just this, no, be you and go fully forward.
I love the word you actually used it a few times in our conversation, limitless.
Mm.
I love that word. It just has, I don't know, just a sense of really no limits.
No limits.
Very expansive.
No limits. The other day I was laughing like crazy. I saw a post coming by on Instagram, and there was a cat laying on a couch being asked a question, are you free today? Are you free tomorrow? And the cat answered, I'm expensive every day.
Yeah. I love that. What a great attitude.
Being limitless means that you don't have to do anything stupid. I mean, make sure that the things you do are realistic and that you can go for it. And, but make sure to not let anybody influence you that you are not a good for something, or that you are good for nothing, or don't let people influence you. And it doesn't matter if you studied or not. It doesn't matter if you have a diploma. It doesn't matter which country you come from. It doesn't matter. I know so many people from different cultures, different countries. I visited 43 countries already in the last 10 years, 43 different countries. And I saw people being very successful from different cultures and colors and backgrounds and religion. Why would you, as an individual listening now, let anybody influence you? You can't do it. Just remember my words, watch me, and I'll show you. Fuck off.
Yeah, fuck off. Renee, what an incredible conversation. I'm sure our paths will continue, our own non-straight line journeys will continue to cross. A guest a few days ago said her belief is that when you energetically connect with someone, you are energetically connected somehow for life. And I come to a sense that would resonate with you. Just in that kind of almost whistle stop tour across such a rich, deep, varied, interesting, inspiring life, is there any bits that we've not spent enough time on, or any part of your non-straight line journey that we haven't touched on that you think would be particularly helpful or encouraging or inspiring to the listener?
I think I'll stick to the same thing, is that don't let anybody steal your dreams, and don't let anybody influence you for the negative, that is. I did allow people influence me for the better, and I chose my environment very specific. I mean, I have very high values today, and I don't allow anybody into my space that is not in those values that I set forward. That is a big game changer for me, that the people I have now in my environment are people who think in the same direction. They have that positive energy. They keep going. There's no negativity. We all have challenges in life, right? But I wouldn't call them negativity. These challenges in life are actually learning stepstones to move on in life. And but be very careful. I mean, it was Jim Rohn that said, "You become as the 5 people you surround yourself with on a daily basis." So make sure to be very specific who you surround yourself with, and then be limitless. Let nobody steal your dream.
Well, I feel privileged to have passed the bar and to have been allowed into your environment, Renee. It's been a joy to spend time with you.
Can I add something?
Yeah.
I am privileged to be on your podcast, because the first time we met, I felt an energy that is very positive, and for me it was like, I can't wait to get on the podcast. Why does it have to take 2 or 3 weeks to get on the podcast? Because I felt the energy was so good. I mean, yeah, and it's a privilege and an honor to be here as well, Peter. Let me acknowledge that.
Thank you very much. And you've given me and the listener tremendous inspiration and helped us on our journey. The question I like to ask all guests is, how can the listener and I help you the most right now? What do you want to put out into the universe to come back to you in some way? How can we help you?
I would love for everybody who is listening to help me in so many ways, but the biggest joy I would experience is that everybody is listening to do something with your life and be limitless. You would help me by following that advice far more than anything else. And why do I say that in this kind of way is that the universe will get back to me. So the only thing I can say, I serve people, I help people, and I can only ask you one thing to do for me, is to be you, be limitless, and go fully forward, and don't mind anybody that is holding you back from doing that. And that will be an amazing gift from the listener and from you, Peter, as well, towards me, to just go fully forward.
That answer in itself just says so much about who you are and how you are, Renee, how you show up in the world. So thank you so much. The last question I have is, in light of your experience of being now in a Not a Straight Line conversation with me, who do you know that you can introduce me to that you think would really value, appreciate, and love this experience?
Wow. I have a lot of people on my mind for that. There is a lady, though, in Australia, Catherine Malloy. She's a colleague of mine. She's in the body language business as well. And we shared stages in Oxford and in London when she was here in the UK, when she was in the UK visiting her son. But she has an amazing way of living herself and an amazing journey herself as well, besides the body language topic. Serving people tremendously. She has a community in Africa serving those people there as well, traveling the planet. Yeah, I would recommend, I'll share her details with you.
Yeah, I'll follow up with you after this about that. That'd be amazing.
Yeah, Catherine Malloy is an amazing individual, an amazing lady. Absolutely.
Thank you. Well, the only thing that's left for me to say, Renee, on behalf of the listener and myself, is thank you for sharing a non-straight line journey with us, and look forward to knowing you more and maybe even working together sometime. Who knows?
You never know how life turns around. And yeah, yeah, it's been a pleasure. And thank you for having me here, Peter. And I hope people take action and do something with life, because life, there's no guarantee for tomorrow. Just freaking do it and don't look left or right. Just go for it. Go for it. So thank you for having me, Peter. I really appreciate it.
Thanks so much for listening to this week's episode of Not a Straight Line. If this conversation helped to reorient your internal compass or inspired you in any way, please let us know by heading to podcast.notastraightline.life/rate. and leave a rating and review. Thanks, as always, to Matthew Bliss of MB Podcast Services for his exquisite engineering of this episode. If you'd like him to help you with your podcast, contact details are in the show notes. And if you'd like to be a guest on the show, or there's someone whose non-straight line journey you'd just love to hear, then please visit podcast.notastraightline.life/guest. Thanks for being here with me, and I'll see you next week for another amazing, deep, inspiring non-straight line journey. Love you.